Taylor Swift is widely recognized for her ability to artistically reinvent herself. From her debut in the country scene to her rise as a global pop icon, every phase of her career has been marked by significant transformations. However, some observers have noticed that these changes occur at intervals of approximately 7 years, suggesting a pattern that goes beyond mere artistic evolution. These transformations coincide with major events in her personal and professional life, such as album releases, image changes, and public occurrences. Could it be possible that these changes are aligned with numerological cycles or symbolic rituals? Could Taylor Swift be following a greater plan that will culminate in 2030? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I'm Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference for YouTube to deliver the videos to more people, and for me to keep bringing this content to you. I'm counting on you. Let's get to the video. If you look closely, you'll notice something strange in Taylor Swift's career. Every 7 years, everything changes. Not just the sound, the style, or the music videos. She changes completely. It's as if she leaves a version of herself behind, and a new one emerges with a very specific purpose. And this, as normal as it may seem in the music world, follows a pattern far too precise to be a coincidence. The number 7 has carried symbolic weight for centuries. 7 days of creation, 7 seals of the apocalypse, 7 years to complete a spiritual life cycle according to ancient esoteric traditions. And Taylor? She's following this to the letter. She released her first album in 2006. In 2014 came 1989, with a complete turn toward pop. In 2020, she released Folklore, changing her skin once again. Exactly 7 years between each major turning point. That alone would be curious. But there's more. In 2014, she didn't just change genres, she vanished from the country world, abandoned the image of the small-town girl, and emerged as an urban, fashion-forward icon, almost unrecognizable. A risky leap, but executed with precision. This isn't just marketing, it's symbolic transformation. It's the kind of thing that, in occult circles, would be called a rebirth. Then comes 2017, and she breaks everything with reputation. She appears with snakes, thrones, and old versions of herself being destroyed. This wasn't just a response to scandals. It was a performance, a theater of death and rebirth. Exactly what a symbolic ritual demands. You kill the previous identity to assume a new, more powerful one. This new identity was built in silence. Taylor distanced herself from the media, disappeared for a while, and returned with full control of the narrative. That's her pattern: first, disappearance. Then, the return with a new era. Always wrapped in symbolism. Always on a rhythm that seems to follow an invisible agenda. When 2020 arrived, no one expected a release. The world was at a standstill, but she appeared with Folklore in the midst of global isolation. An introspective, mysterious, almost ethereal album. New image, new aesthetic. What seemed like an experimental record was, in fact, the beginning of yet another complete transformation. And guess what? 7 years after the pop explosion of 2014, these changes are so well-timed that it's hard to see them as mere artistic evolution. It seems planned, calculated in advance, following a kind of timeline. And this timeline always ends in a rebirth, as if Taylor is little by little ceasing to be an artist and becoming a symbol. And that's where things start to get even stranger. Because when a celebrity begins to act in such precise cycles, with such radical changes and such clear symbols, you start to wonder, is she in control or just following instructions? Many people believe that major pop culture figures are used as archetypes, models that represent greater ideas. And Taylor Swift, with all her influence, may have been shaping herself for something even more ambitious for years. She doesn't just talk about albums, she talks about eras, as if each phase were a new chapter in a mission. What if all this is building toward a climax in 2030? The next shift is already marked, if the pattern holds. And it's not just numerology pointing to that. It's the way every detail has been carefully placed, piece by piece, era by era. Could Taylor Swift be being shaped for something much bigger than just music? Something that, so far, has only been revealed in parts, and that may finally take form in 2030? What happens around Taylor Swift always seems perfectly choreographed. The line between what is personal life and what is spectacle has never been clear, and perhaps that's exactly the point. With each new era, new relationships emerge, timely scandals appear, and more often than not, there's a disappearance that precedes the next phase. These moves are so precise, they seem more like part of a script than an ordinary life. During the 1989 cycle, Taylor took on a highly media-centric public persona. She was seen at parties with celebrities, formed what the press dubbed a squad, and her romantic relationships were highly visible. It was during this period that her romances with Calvin Harris and Tom Hiddleston emerged, both widely publicized. Interestingly, these relationships began and ended always close to major music releases. In 2016, she disappeared from the media for almost a year. No paparazzi shots, no appearances. To the public, it was as if she had vanished from the map. When she returned in 2017, it was with Reputation, already framed in a narrative of revenge and rebirth. But this disappearance wasn't just a retreat. It seemed to be the beginning of a new ritual, a strategic withdrawal from the public stage to create the next identity, with the precise timing of a symbolic restart. These hiatuses are always followed by highly structured narratives. Taylor never returns randomly. She emerges with a complete concept, a cohesive aesthetic, and carefully planted events to spark public attention. In Reputation, she reemerges attacking the media that tore her down. In Folklore, she returns in silence, introspective, amid a pandemic. In both cases, public life and artistic narrative walk hand in hand, as parts of the same performance. This isn't about questioning whether the relationships were real. What's being examined is the timing of their appearance, and the role they play within the artist's narrative arc. In Red, her image was tied to romantic vulnerability. In 1989, she distances herself from that, takes control, and presents a more independent figure. In Reputation, she uses the romance with Joe Alwyn as a symbol of internal stability, away from the spotlight. A curious pattern, always aligned with the discourse of the new Taylor. And there's another important detail, the public conflicts. The fights with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, the war with Scooter Braun over the rights to her music, the subtle jabs at ex-boyfriends and celebrities, all of it erupts in the media right before or during album releases. Once again, it seems like the storm is meant to reinforce the narrative of metamorphosis, always at the moment a new era is about to be born. Using the media as both mirror and shield is a powerful tool. Taylor allows herself to be seen up to a certain point. She controls what appears, what disappears, and what explodes. But who is really choosing what's revealed? And what if these public events aren't just random noise of fame, but parts of a larger plan, carefully built to trigger cultural and symbolic responses? When we analyze the timing, everything starts to seem less spontaneous. The romance begins weeks before a single drops. The controversy explodes days before an album is announced. The disappearance happens during moments of public exhaustion, followed by a triumphant return. And in all these moments, the artist doesn't just survive, she is reborn stronger. As if each crisis were, in fact, a deliberate preparation for the next rise. Some might say it's just marketing. But when the same structure repeats itself so many times, with such precision, it's impossible not to wonder, who's writing this script? Or better yet, how much of Taylor Swift is just a character of herself? It's as if everything around her were staged. Public life functions as a stage where each relationship, each scandal, each calculated silence is part of something much larger. Perhaps a preparation, perhaps a mystical narrative, or maybe an ongoing cultural experiment. What the media reflects isn't just the artist, it's the archetype, and that mirror, which returns to the public carefully constructed versions of Taylor Swift, may be showing only the surface of something much deeper. After all, how many times can someone disappear and be reborn before the original identity is lost forever? When you watch a Taylor Swift music video, you're not just seeing a song brought to life. You're entering a universe full of layers. Details that seem purely aesthetic at first glance carry repeated symbols, mythological references, and visual messages that defy any superficial explanation. It's no coincidence, it's construction. In the Look What You Made Me Do video, for instance, Taylor appears surrounded by snakes, sitting on a golden throne, sipping tea while the world collapses around her. In another moment, old versions of herself try to climb a pyramid, struggling to reach the top. The message here is not subtle. A hierarchy is being built, a ritualistic ascension. And anyone familiar with esoteric symbolism knows what a pyramid represents. The snakes were not chosen randomly. They emerged as a response to the controversy with Kanye and Kim, but were elevated to the central symbol of the Reputation era. In occultism, the serpent represents rebirth, hidden wisdom, and the eternal cycle of transformation. Using this animal as a trademark isn't just provocation, it's a declaration. In Ready for It, Taylor appears naked inside a glass capsule, like an entity being manufactured or preserved. She's surrounded by lightning, technological symbols, and faces a darker version of herself. This clash between selves represents identity conflict. But what if it's more than that? What if it portrays Taylor as a product created and controlled by something bigger? Her being cloned, destroyed, reborn. This recurs in several videos. In Out of the Woods, she runs from a dark forest, scratched and chased by wolves, until she finally reaches a beach where she meets another version of herself. In Delicate, she dances invisibly in a hotel while the real world ignores her. These are narratives about isolation, transition, purification, all told through highly symbolic visuals. The most curious thing is how these elements intensify during times of transition. When Taylor is about to change eras, her videos become more saturated with symbols. In The Man, for example, she transforms into a man to explore male privilege. But the video also includes a graffiti wall that reads "Missing. If found, return to Taylor Swift," as if she herself were lost or being replaced. There are also strange numerological elements and visual patterns. In Me, we see butterflies, a classic symbol of metamorphosis, rainbows, frequently associated with symbolic reprogramming in conspiracy theories, and the number 13 hidden in various moments, a number Taylor claims is her favorite, but which also holds strong weight in Kabbalistic numerology. Her work with director Joseph Kahn is also noteworthy. The videos made with him have an extremely controlled theatrical aesthetic, full of visual messages and settings that evoke the idea of simulation, manipulation, and constructed identity. Nothing in these videos seems improvised. It's all image architecture, or perhaps hidden narrative architecture. For those who just want to consume music, these details go unnoticed. But for those who watch closely, the music videos function like codes, messages that reveal themselves slowly, like pieces of a puzzle still being assembled. And with each new piece, more questions arise about who is really in control. What is the true purpose of these symbols? Are they merely enriching the visuals, or mentally preparing the audience for something greater that has yet to be revealed? How many more messages are hidden in plain sight? No one who has followed Taylor Swift for some time doubts that she is obsessed with numbers. But this goes far beyond superstition. There's a precise, almost mathematical logic behind the dates she chooses to release her albums, announce tours, or even publish simple posts. And when those numbers align with Kabbalistic meanings, the pattern begins to take on a much more unsettling shape. The number 13 is the most well-known among fans. She has stated multiple times that it's her lucky number. But why 13? For most people, it represents bad luck. In occultism, however, it is a number of transformation, tied to death and rebirth, the same themes that mark nearly every era transition in her career. It's a number that signifies rupture, and Taylor uses it with surgical precision. Her albums are often released on numerically charged dates. Reputation, for example, was released on November 10, 2017. Adding the numbers gives us 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 7 is equal to 13. Coincidence? It doesn't seem like it. The release of 1989 was announced on August 13th at 1 p.m. The math is simple, but the symbolic impact is enormous for those who are paying attention. Beyond 13, another recurring number is 7. It appears in cycles, in releases, and in subtle references. In 2023, for example, Taylor released the re-recording of Speak Now exactly 13 years after the original version. The chosen date? July 7th. A double code, 13 years later, on the 7th day of the 7th month. Whoever chooses dates like that is sending a message, even if a veiled one. The use of mirrored numbers also stands out. She has released material on November 11th, used clock symbols showing 2:22, 5:55, and other repeating patterns. In esoteric numerology, these are called master numbers and are associated with portal openings, heightened consciousness, and events that connect the physical and spiritual planes. Could each release be calculated to coincide with some kind of energetic window? Some theories suggest that Taylor might be using concepts from Gematria, a Kabbalistic system where letters and words have numeric values. This would explain, for example, why certain album or track titles have specific numbers of letters, or why names with particular initials appear at specific moments in her career. Everything seems to be tied into an internal logic that only a few can decode. And this extends even to the timing of announcements. Taylor frequently announces new projects at 1 p.m. or posts at 3:13, 1:13, or 11:11. To many, it might seem like a quirk, but for those who understand the power of numeric repetition, especially in digital environments where time and attention are symbolic resources, these small details become part of a hidden language. During the Midnight's rollout in 2022, she created a sequence of announcements called Midnight's Mayhem with Me, revealing tracks from the album one by one in a ritualistic manner, precisely at midnight, the exact time between one day and the next, symbolizing transition, the threshold. It wasn't just a show, it was a symbolic act in itself. The control she exerts over these dates goes beyond marketing. Major releases, era shifts, even public feuds, all orbit around these numbers. It seems as though every move is decided based on an internal calendar, invisible to the general public, but full of meaning for those who are paying attention. It might sound like an exaggeration, but in a world where everything is content, launching something on a specific date can be the difference between just releasing another song or activating a symbolism that echoes far beyond digital platforms. Taylor Swift knows this, and she may be using this symbolic math for something greater, something that will culminate in 2030. And what happens when all these numbers converge? Will we be witnessing just another album, or a revelation that has been carefully architected for years? Every time Taylor Swift changes eras, it's not just a style update. It's as if a new entity emerges in place of the previous one. Her voice changes, the lyrics shift, the gestures evolve, even her gaze. It's as if each version of her follows a different configuration, as if she's programmed for a new cycle of influence, something that goes far beyond music. This methodical construction of identity resembles character design more than the life path of a real person. Think about it, each phase has a defined color palette, its own language, specific wardrobe, clear emotional narrative, and even a villain or conflict theme. This isn't common even among the biggest artists. This is character architecture. And not just any character, an archetype. Carl Jung spoke of archetypes as universal patterns of behavior. The hero, the victim, the witch, the mother. Taylor has embodied them all. In Red, she was the heartbroken, love-struck youth. In 1989, the independent woman taking control. In Reputation, the vengeful, powerful witch. In Folklore, the introspective, almost ethereal entity observing the world from afar. The cycle repeats, but with increasingly complex layers. Some say this is just branding, but branding doesn't transform someone so deeply, so ritualistically. Branding doesn't require an artist to disappear for months and then return with a new artistic soul. That kind of transformation demands a level of surrender or external control, far more intense. Notice how Taylor also refers to herself in the plural. My versions, my eras, the different Taylors. In Look What You Made Me Do, she mocks her old identities, as if fully aware that each was just a role. And when she says, the old Taylor is dead, it's not just dramatic metaphor. It's a severance from an entity that no longer serves the current purpose. There's a psychological and symbolic pattern being followed. The old identity is publicly destroyed, replaced by a new one with carefully designed traits. With each new cycle, Taylor moves further from a continuous self and closer to something more fluid, adaptable, almost like a cultural avatar that shapeshifts to match the spirit of the times. And that raises an uncomfortable question. Who is in control of this avatar? Is Taylor the mastermind behind it all? Or is she playing a larger role, guided by very well-defined instructions? Because the level of synchronization between what she projects and what the social moment demands is astonishing, almost as if she's fulfilling a programmed mission. What's most curious is that she never breaks character. Even in interviews, everything seems calculated, controlled, rehearsed. She speaks like the Taylor of that era, dresses like her, maintains a discourse aligned with the visual narrative. There are no leaks, no slips. This isn't just discipline. its full character consistency, like a temporary incarnation. This fluidity may be what makes Taylor so powerful, but it's also what makes her an oddly impersonal figure. The lingering question is, which of these versions is the real one? Or is there no central identity left? Could it be that by constructing so many personas, she has erased the original self? What we're witnessing may not just be a music career. It could be a long-term experiment, a living creation, shape-shifting as it advances towards something greater. And what if this is a formation process, a symbolic engineering project to prepare a figure that surpasses the idea of an artist? Are we still talking about Taylor Swift, or about something using her image to assume a new global role? "2030 is no ordinary date. For some, it's a global milestone, the year of the UN's Agenda 2030, which promises to transform the world on multiple fronts: economy, culture, climate, technology, behavior. For others, it's a symbol of a new cycle, a turning point. And within this scenario, Taylor Swift's trajectory seems to follow a silent countdown. It's hard to ignore how the artist's cycles are moving toward this date. 2006 marks the beginning. 2014, the turning point. 2020, the symbolic withdrawal. And now what's next? All signs indicate that 2030 may not be just the year of a new musical era, but the culmination of a construction that began decades ago. A slow, meticulous preparation carried out in plain sight, yet understood by few. Even now, a curious movement is taking place. Taylor is more influential than ever. Her tours break global records, her speeches are studied, her image appears in universities, cultural forums, even political discussions. She has gone from being just a singer to a cultural phenomenon. But is all of this happening by chance? Or could it be part of something much bigger? In certain theoretical circles, there's the idea that major cultural figures don't just reflect change, they lead it. They prepare the ground. They are bridges between what exists and what will soon be accepted. And when we observe how Taylor reorganizes her symbols, her dates, her presence, everything points to a purpose that has yet to be revealed. Imagine an image being built over 24 years, each cycle bringing an element, a sound, an aesthetic, an archetype, all of it serving to form something, someone, a figure that, in 2030, might reveal herself not as an artist, but as the definitive cultural icon, a point of convergence. And have you ever stopped to think about the power someone like her would hold in that scenario? This isn't baseless theory. The biggest platforms, brands, and institutions want to associate with Taylor. She influences millions with a single phrase, with a gesture. The algorithm responds to her. The market bends. Behavior changes. This isn't just success. It's alignment with something larger, a movement preparing the world for a new symbolic, aesthetic, and perhaps ideological order. Each of her eras can be understood as a phase of collective adaptation. First, the pure image. Then media domination. Then the destruction of that image. Next, the spiritualized retreat. And now, what's coming? What if the next Taylor is no longer just a face, but a central idea? Some culture scholars already say, we are living in the age of living archetypes, people who become myths in real time. And the myth of Taylor Swift seems to be growing with a purpose, a final alignment, a role that, until now, has been carefully kept under wraps. One final detail draws attention. If the patterns hold, Taylor's next major transformation is set to occur precisely in 2030. The question that must be asked is, will that date mark just a new album, or the activation of everything that's been built so far? What happens when a symbol is refined to the point of becoming a global figure of influence? And what if Taylor is being prepared, or preparing herself, to be exactly that? Taylor Swift may be seen by many as an artist in constant evolution. But for those who observe closely, what emerges is much more than a music career. It's the construction of a symbol, a public entity that appears to follow an invisible plan, yet one perfectly synchronized with symbolic cycles, numerical patterns, and historical moments. Each era is a piece, each gesture a key, and the final destination of all this is still to be revealed. This story is just one piece, and one day you may see the whole puzzle. If this made you think, subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel grow. Don't forget to share, because more voices mean more discoveries.